Another year, another Call of Duty. Despite all the hate this Titan franchise gets, every entry in this blockbuster franchise seems to release to critical and commercial success, and usually ends up breaking a couple of records along the way. The last entry, Infinite Warfare, went head to head with Battlefield 1, in a time when people were tired of futuristic warfare and very much craved a return to the old school warfare. Needless to say, Infinite Warfare was one of the worst selling Call of Duty games, and almost every critic and consumer claimed Battlefield 1 was the clear winner, which also led to the internet doing this. And here we are more than a year later, in 2017, with Call of Duty setting its eyes on redemption, with their newest Call of Duty game, Call of Duty World War II. This game takes the series back a couple generations, to a setting where the series first began to gain traction, World War II. Now I was first very excited upon hearing the new game would return to this era, as Battlefield 1 did an incredible job of returning to the past. And from the overall phenomenal reviews, I thought this was a game that would finally get Call of Duty back on its feet and become the FPS king like it used to be. Where after playing everything the game has to offer, I am sad to say this entry is not what I and many others were hoping for. This is a decent game with a ton of content, but it seems to lack the passion and character that made the old Call of Duty game so much fun and popular, and the end product is something that I completely gave up on playing, and have no desire to return to. I remember the days when Call of Duty was this awesome experience that I, along with everyone in my school, would participate in. As soon as I got home, I would kick off my shoes, turn on my Xbox, pop in a Call of Duty game, and invite all my friends into party chat. My name is Keanu Miller, and in this review, I'm going to cover the story, graphics, music, gameplay, multiplayer, split screen, zombies, and the new loot system. As always, I try to make my reviews as comprehensive as possible, so timestamps will be in the description for your convenience. So with that said, let's get into an aspect of Call of Duty that is almost always great, the story.
Gentlemen, we're on the verge of the biggest operation of the entire war.
All right, fellas. This is our chance to break out of Normandy.
For the story of the game, I don't just mean the plot. I mean the narrative and level design. Now before I played Call of Duty World War II's story, I had heard nothing but praise of it, and I would have believed it until I played it. Now I don't mean the story is bad by any means, it's just that the story feels kind of average. I mean, when you look at the fantastic story Call of Duty is able to create in Modern Warfare 2, as well as Black Ops,
where only a few know what really happened.
Ready when you are.
it just seems like the overall quality of the narrative has regressed. The game tried to have a story as captivating as Saving Private Ryan, as made by the obvious D-Day scene and tanks scene, but what made those scenes so fantastic and memorable in the movies was that it was one of the first films to show the true horror of war and the true meaning of brothers to the end. Call of Duty did a lot of those aspects great back in Call of Duty 2, so here it kind of feels like a dumbed down remaster, just trying to show off their new graphics engine. It also doesn't help when the game tries to make it seem like a character is going to die, but due to there still being more levels in the game, we know our character is fine and out of harm's way. The character you play as in this game must also have some of the best luck imaginable. Now there's some really cool plot devices that are generally interesting, minor spoilers here, such as when the game tries to do unique missions, when there's almost no fighting involved, such as Liberation. This mission has you playing as a female in the French army, and I love this mission because it very much reminded me of the movie Valkyrie. This mission shows that if Call of Duty would try to be more innovative and create some unique and very different mission designs, outside of the run and gun, they can do some truly amazing things, such as having the player remember character information. Sadly though, this is the only mission that truly stood out to me, and the rest of the game's story feels very cliché and just tries to steal ideas and emotions from Saving Private Ryan. With the setting of World War II, the general story is basically already set in stone. That's why it's up to the gameplay and level design of missions to truly set the stage to wow us the player. There are several parts of this game that have some cool gameplay aspects, such as trying to be quiet while rescuing a little girl, a semi-on-rails fighter plane mission, and of course the formerly mentioned Liberation mission. The problem is, for all those cool innovative parts of the game, comes the usual Call of Duty Jeep driving sections, on-rails turret sections, and scripted teammate saving, which is made worse because it highlights just how truly awful this game's AI is. Call of Duty's inability to invest a dime in upgrading AI is starting to show. Games from almost 2 decades ago still have better AI than this game. The teammate AI is equally as terrible, which is always amusing considering how much the game builds up the lead characters as being great and notable fighters. But I guess at least the scenery and environments in the background can be pretty to look at.
Alright, first platoon, we're rolling out. Let's go! Let's go!
In terms of graphics and artistic design, the game very much seems to be a product of two halves. On one half, you have the well done and sometimes impressive visuals of the single player, and on the other half, the extremely lackluster, bland, and last-gen looking visuals of the multiplayer. Now, Call of Duty has never really had great graphics, and they have never been known for their visuals. The only time Call of Duty has ever hyped up their visuals is the same time in which they mentioned their amazing ability to have fish move.
Fluid dynamics, interactive smoke, and also added an AI system to it. So we have fish move out of the way when you get close to them. This is powered by a new next-gen engine that gives us amazing graphic fidelity and really innovative fish.
The graphics of the single player are pretty good and definitely seem up to date. In fact, at some points in the game, the lighting and facial animation is incredible, and shows just how good the engine can be for linear mission designs. I mean, these facial details are insane, and you can easily tell these are real people. It's a shame then, that when you take the beautiful and well-constructed visuals of the single player and compare it to the multiplayer, it seems like a different game. The character models are just okay, the textures are bland and sometimes have terrible pop-in, and the gun models and lighting are average. I'm not saying this is a terrible looking experience, but when you compare it to a game like Battlefield 1 or Battlefront 2 that have much higher player counts, particle effects, vehicles, and huge skyboxes, those games blow COD WW2 out of the water, as they are on the brink of photorealism, and yet Sledgehammer seems like they are just now making their first game on current gen hardware, and ended up with average visuals complemented with very average music. Now, I know many COD fans don't think music is important in the game, but before you say that, listen to the startup music in this game for factions.
But they must not prevail. You will.
Did you see that body just ragdoll? Okay, where am I at? I'm at A. I want to be at A1 BB.
Now listen to some of the faction music in the older games like Modern Warfare 2,
Team Deathmatch. Take no prisoners, comrades.
and Black Ops. I would always play extra hard when being the Rangers in Modern Warfare 2, so I could hear that fantastic victory song played by Hans Zimmer. These beginning faction songs always got me so pumped and excited at the very beginning of the match in the old Call of Duty games. And yet here, there is no musical motivation before a match. A comment I've heard from many people is that at least the main theme or menu music here is pretty good for the game. To me, this is good music, but not great, and it is one of the only songs to stand out in the game. Most of the music in this game is very much just made as background noise, and never meant to take center stage, which is a big missed opportunity given how great the themes were in games like Black Ops 1, and how good the menu music was in Black Ops 2. In fact, most of the music I've had in the background of this review, as I'm sure many of you Call of Duty fans have noticed, has all been music from different COD games, due to them being much more pleasant and just flat out better. Okay, Now let's look into an aspect of Call of Duty games that is usually fairly consistent: the gameplay. The gameplay in COD changed a considerable amount from COD 2 and 3 to Modern Warfare, where it then remained pretty consistent before changing yet again during the Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare era. Now Call of Duty feels much more like the Modern Warfare and early Black Ops era, thanks to there being no exosuits and jump jets in COD World War II. This I am thankful for, as for me I did not care much for the wall climbing and double jumping, which was pretty much just a Titanfall ripoff. Now it's back to the usual hyper-fast, twitch reflex shooting game that it used to be. Everything feels fast, smooth, and fluid. Call of Duty has always been a game that people can pick up and learn pretty quickly, thanks to the gameplay being rather simple and not all that complex. In campaign, the gameplay feels fine, if not a little out of place, due to it being so fast-paced. But in multiplayer, it fits like a glove. Of course, now in Call of Duty, there are classes that can make some difference in terms of weapon and perk choices, but other than that, this is the COD you remember. The only problem is, well, the multiplayer in this game should be the most acclaimed and fun aspect, but for me and many others, it's one of the worst versions of COD multiplayer yet. When you think of Call of Duty multiplayer, 3 things will probably pop into your mind instantly: simple, fun, and a ton of variety. Well, the answer to 2 of those 3 things is yes. The multiplayer is fairly simple and straightforward, and there's a ton of game modes in this game. But even though the game has a lot to play and is simple, I'm starting to think COD multiplayer is a good 5 to 7 years behind all the rest. I mean, look at the multiplayer in Call of Duty vs. Battlefield.
Fight for the fuel!
I want to get a video out.
Push back.
To me, after I began to play Battlefield, I've always had trouble going back to Call of Duty multiplayer. I mean, in Call of Duty you might have a lot of modes, but they are all pretty small player counts, on small maps, with no vehicles. While in Battlefield, you can have game modes for all sorts of player counts, from small scrimmages to massive all-out warfare with 32 versus 32 players, vehicles, and destructible environments. But I understand some people like COD multiplayer for what it is. Well, in that case in this game, you have the usual multiplayer offering of popular game modes such as Team Deathmatch, Domination, Hardpoint, and Search and Destroy. But the mode that's supposed to be the big new jewel of Call of Duty is a game mode called War. War is introduced as a narrative-driven multiplayer game mode where 2 teams of 6 players perform objectives as either the Allied or Axis faction. Now to me this is my favorite game mode easily, as it takes place in some very historic and iconic locales, such as storming Normandy on D-Day. But this mode could have really been something amazing if the maps were 3 times larger and the player count was 20v20 or so. I mean, on one map, one team has to get a tank across the bridge, but there's only one bridge, so it ends up being terribly unfun due to it just being a tight, bottleneck encounter that requires no real tactics and just a lot of grenade spamming. My friends and I have all thought countless times that on every map when there is a bottleneck section, or set pieces that include AI bots to make up for the lack of players, it would just make so much more sense to have more players and larger maps. Then they can also have 3 bridges instead of 1. Also, this game mode is a straight ripoff of Battlefield's Rush mode, which is larger, more tactical, has vehicles, and looks a whole lot prettier than this game. To make matters worse in this game, there are no kill streaks. Now, kill streaks in COD World War II are already hard to come by, but they are also probably some of the most boring kill streaks yet, and have no excitement and character to them, like there was in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2.
Tactical nuke! Incoming! Counter UAV up, they're blind! Headquarters offline.
I remember even just care packages for that game were fun and exciting. Yet here, all the kill streaks are bland, and the best kill streak I seem to be able to earn is a recon drone. For a while, I just kept stumbling around trying to figure out just why it is that I can have amazing KDs in Halo, Destiny, Battlefield, Battlefront, Rainbow Six, or basically any other FPS than this game. Well, now I think I understand why I'm so bad in this game, not just in comparison to other shooters, but also to other Call of Duty games in general. In other games, there are battle lines. I like the idea that one team spawns on one end of the map, and the other team spawns on the opposing end. Then as the game progresses, you know mostly you're only going to get shot at from the opposing end. Yes, there'll be some people who flank you from time to time, but that's not happening non-stop like in this game. The spawning in this game might be the worst I've seen yet.
Hardcore free-for-all.
Hardcore free-for-all. They got you surrounded.
I mean, there was one time the enemy team had us pinned down and I got spawn killed instantly 8 times or so. And if there's no spawn trapping or spawn killing going on, then players are just spawning randomly wherever the game sees fit. It really does feel like a headless chicken kind of chaotic gameplay, and it's just not as much fun here. I enjoyed the maps and gameplay of the other Call of Duty games back then, but now it just feels like COD is losing its touch. I will give them one big compliment though, and that is that COD remains one of the few games that truly allows almost all of its content to be playable offline. COD WW2 does include the ability to play most modes in the game with AI bots, where you can mess with the game mode settings, including time limits, time to kill, number of players, and so much more. And you also have all the guns unlocked when playing this way. This is a phenomenal feature for players who just aren't as good at the actual multiplayer, or just want to relax, mess around, and have some fun. If you're someone with spotty internet at times, or just want to use the best guns in the game and decimate hundreds of AI players, then this is an aspect of the game that you will love. And it is complemented beautifully by one more aspect of this game: split screen.
Time to show what you're made of, soldier. Bring the more to them, bring it hard.
Now, I'm not a very old gamer, but I've been gaming now for more than 14 years or so. Over that time, I've seen a massive change and drift in gaming. That's had both pros and cons. One of my least favorite parts about modern gaming is how it seems to be much more anti-social than it used to be. Gone are the days of LAN parties full of pizza and Doritos for an after-school Halo or Call of Duty tournament.
Nice. It's gonna be sick. Just about to get started. One TV. We're all the ladies, yeah. A projector. Yeah, this is a huge screen right here. Another Xbox right there.
Nowadays, finding a game that supports any kind of split screen is nearly impossible, as publishers and developers are more concerned with the pixels and frame rate of the game over sociability and fun. Halo and Call of Duty have almost always been games I could count on that still allowed local split screen. And when Halo 5 having ditched split screen, it is a relief that it still exists here in COD WW2. Despite what my overall opinions are on the game, or what anyone else's is, we have to give respect for the game still allowing 2-player split screen online and offline. I really miss 4-player split screen, but in a time and generation when that is such a rarity, it is a breath of fresh air to see this feature has not been gutted and still exists. In COD WW2, you can play split screen for multiplayer online, as well as the game's offline offerings, meaning you can still invite your best friend over after work and sit down and play a couple of matches of multiplayer before heading out for the night. Or if you have more than an hour or so, you can even play split screen in the returning staple of the franchise, zombies. Zombies, a mode first introduced in COD World at War all the way back in 2008, is still just as prevalent now as it has always been. What once started as a simple minigame took off to become insanely popular, and is now associated with Call of Duty games so strongly that it has become a core pillar of the franchise. But Zombies has changed a lot from its World at War days over the past 9 years. While the goal used to be simple, use points to get better guns and survive the zombie horde for as long as possible, while the horde becomes stronger, more durable, and larger in number. The game mode is now considerably more complicated for both better and worse. Now there are many types of zombies, maps are significantly larger with hidden secrets and rooms, abilities are plentiful and fun, weapons can be pack-a-punch to become fun and crazy weapons of havoc and chaos, and now you can upgrade your character to have different perks and starting weapons. I've heard from a lot of people and seen a lot of videos about how this is the worst version of Zombies yet, but I disagree to an extent. I still have a lot of fun playing this mode with 3 other friends, thanks to some of them knowing how to do all the Easter eggs.
I used it till like round 23.
What the earthquake?
By the store. By the store. Oh, we're over here. Come here.
Alright, follow me. This is
Hurry
another
up.
really important part.
and objectives to advance the mode's semi-inclusion of story.
This leads down to this crazy room over here, I think. Yeah, this one.
But on the other hand, I would still very much like a simpler survival mode that didn't require as much teamwork, wasn't as overly complicated, and wasn't infested of yet more loot boxes, and was just more, well, simple. I don't think this new version of zombies is broken or awful, but why not have both modes? I do think there are 3 things weird or wrong at the moment with zombies that have caused some players to dislike this new version of the mode. 1, I don't know if I'm alone here, but I really miss the old game's use of sounds and freaky voices when picking up items such as max ammo, the mystery box sounds,
Serious? Alright, get out.
and the use of the music at the beginning of the rounds.
That's the one that I want, dude. That one's so good.
2, the mode has been famous recently for using famous actors and putting them in the mode as characters. While they usually have cool phrases and dialogue, here they are reserved to mostly just grunts, aside from the opening cinematic.
Duly noted, which brings us to Middleburg and the current operation. Dr. Fisher?
10 days ago, we received a dossier. Material smuggled out by a young Austrian scientist who's reconsidering his loyalties.
3, which leads me to my last talking point about this game. Why on earth is the worst aspect of gaming back here yet again, even in zombies? Loot boxes. While Call of Duty has been including loot boxes for a while now in the form of supply drops, loot boxes and loot in general is a little different now in COD WW2. First off, the opening of loot boxes now takes place in the lobby area called the headquarters, which is a social space where players can gather to hang out, practice firing their weapons in the target range, watch some esports in the theater, pick up missions, or play against one another in a 1v1 deathmatch area called the pit, which surprisingly has been my favorite part of the game. To unlock these supply drops, you have to use the in-game economy, which isn't too difficult to get or punishing, as supply drops this time around are limited to cosmetic items. Now usually I hate loot boxes, but here, the loot and the items you get from crates are so incredibly boring and dumb that I honestly have zero care for them at all in multiplayer. In these supply drops you can get an assortment of calling cards, weapons that give an experience boost, and a ton of random grips that will never excite you. So overall, these supply drops are hardly invasive, but where they do spark some controversy is in their presentation. But presentation can be a powerful thing by itself. The animation here is clearly meant to mirror the likes of slot machines. A variable reward is one of the most powerful psychological motivations. It's not just about getting you to spend money, but for you to feel good though when you're playing the game and staying engaged long enough to earn more boxes. Now though, you'll get at least part of that thrill, regardless if it's you or not that's opening up crates, when watching others open up their own rewards, as now anyone can see what you get in your crates and vice versa. This was obviously implemented to make it to where if you see someone get an exotic or legendary grip or gun, then you too will want to chase the rabbit. As I said before though, I literally have zero care of these crates, but for some players who are collectors or really invested in cosmetic items, this is just another level of sinister microtransactions that's slowly being implemented into every part of gaming. With that said, let's wrap up all these loose puzzle pieces and put them together to see how good the final product is. Okay, to sum it all up, this game isn't terrible, nor is it one of the worst games I've played, like some people have made it sound. But it is extremely disappointing, void of passion, and lacking of that same character that made some of the old Call of Duty games feel not just like a game, but an experience. Call of Duty used to be the FPS king, and it used to feel like its own game. Now Call of Duty seems to be just a soulless copycat whose best and new features are just rip-offs of other games, but much worse in design and execution. This game can be fun at times, and there certainly is a lot of content here for one to dive into. But at a time when the gaming market can feel oversaturated, only games that are truly unique or truly breathtaking will get the attention that Call of Duty used to get. It is easy to see this game very much wanted to steal the kind of hype Battlefield 1 had, but it feels like comparing night and day. COD World War II feels like a last generation game trying to copy anything popular for the hopes of remaining relevant. So now I'll give my ratings on all of the game's categories, along with the overall rating. For story, 5 out of 10. For graphics, 5 out of 10. For music, 3 out of 10. For gameplay, 7 out of 10. For multiplayer, 5 out of 10. For split screen, 8 out of 10. For zombies, 6 out of 10. And of course the loot, 3 out of 10. And if you do the math right there, you'll get what I feel the game deserves, a 5.3 out of 10. This game is barely above average thanks to the ability to play the game's multiplayer offline, the ability to play split screen with a friend, and thanks to the game's good amount of content. If you are a die-hard Call of Duty fan, or someone that is just itching for a new shooter to play with friends, then this game is maybe worth checking out. But if you're looking to relive that same old feeling that Call of Duty used to embody, or hoping for a truly great shooter, then you'll be extremely disappointed. I gave up on this game pretty quickly and have no plans to ever return to it. Especially since I know in less than a year, the next Call of Duty game will already be upon us. Activision needs to seriously step up the quality of their next Call of Duty games if they want this annual franchise to stand tall and keep breaking records like it used to. For right now, this truly feels like the game is on life support. I've never been a huge COD fan, but I did love some of their old games, and it's sad to see a franchise that flourished during the golden era of gaming go down this route and become a husk of popular shooters. Well, this concludes my review. I know it was longer than some others and later than some others, but I hope I made this an experience worth watching. Let me know in the comments below what all you thought of COD World War II and of the review. Feel free to agree or disagree with me, but tell me why. And if you like this video and you want to see more like it, be sure to leave a like and hit that subscribe button. And with that said, I'll see you all on the next Shepard Gaming video. Keyless Ally.